Good evening and welcome to the Sewer Informational Public Forum. I'm Nick Lawler, General Manager of Littleton Electric Light and Water Departments. Thanks for joining us tonight. We organized this forum to update the community on our work regarding the sewer project. I'm joined today by Dave Ketchum, our Assistant General Manager, who will present to you further on the issue, and Corey Godfrey, our Water and Sewer Superintendent. If you have questions, we ask that you either use the question and answer feature on Zoom or email us at info@lelwd.com. Dave, Corey, and I will answer all questions after this presentation. We'd also like to mention that we have a webpage dedicated to this issue, lelwd.com/sewer department. On that page, you'll see all up-to-date information regarding the sewer project. We've had that page now for a couple of years, so that information is kept up to date from when we started the holistic view of the sewer system up until today. All right, Dave, it's all yours. Why don't you give an update of where we are?
Thanks, Nick. Give me 1 second. I'll share my screen now. Okay. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. This evening, we'll be giving an update on the different aspects of the sewer expansion project and discussing what type of impacts the new mixed-use development at 550 King Street could have on this project. As we've stated, we'll answer questions at the end of the presentation. Please submit the questions using the Q&A feature through Zoom or submit them to info@lelwd.com. Just a note, to use the Q&A feature, make sure you push the QA button on Zoom, raise your virtual hand, and then type out your question to us. A number of activities have happened in the past few years that have helped pave the way for where we are today. Recently, the sewer division was transferred from the Select Board to the Board of Water Commissioners. Also, authorization was granted to design and construct a larger sewer discharge site at the Littleton High School to support the potential expansion of the sewer system. The sewer needs assessment was completed by engineering firm STM Smith at the end of 2020. For those that don't remember, the needs assessment analyzed the sewer needs of Littleton holistically in order to preserve its water and land resources and to promote smart economic growth. The complete needs assessment is available on our website, like Nick said, at lelwd.com. Under the direction of the Board of Water Commissioners, we have been working with CDM Smith on a sewer system expansion design that would bring the sewer to the Littleton common area, and we'll get more into that later in the presentation. There is also an RFP seeking proposals for LWD to acquire a parcel of land for a treatment facility. After reviewing multiple proposals, the Board of Commissioners recently decided to move forward with purchasing 242 King Street as this location, due to its proximity to the discharge site and the common, among other reasons. The most recent news that changes the entire dynamic of the sewer expansion project was the interest in 550 King Street to connect into the system. The former tenant, IBM, never had interest in connecting to the system, which caused feasibility challenges. Since IBM has left, Littleton Companies has purchased the land and stated interest in connecting to the proposed sewer system. Here's a timeline of the sewer expansion project over the last 5 years that can help you visualize the items that I just talked about and a few more. There are a few more key ones that I'd like to note. Like in 2018, a $1.5 million MassWorks grant was awarded to the town for the sewer project, and $2.2 million was appropriated to design the expansion into the Littleton Common, which we just started doing this year. In 2019, $1.6 million was appropriated to purchase land for the sewer treatment facility. There was also a voter petition to keep the sewer treatment facility from being placed at the highway department. In 2020, $2.5 million was appropriated to fund the design and construction of a larger sewer discharge site. Just recently, the Board of Commissioners voted to expand the sewer district to include 550 King Street, and an article is being proposed at town meeting next week to fund construction of the sewer expansion. I want to talk about the existing municipal sewer system. This system flows sewage to the Littleton High School where it is treated at the wastewater treatment plant shown here. This treatment plant was built at the same time as the high school, roughly 20 years ago. This plant was built to handle municipal building load and currently serves 6 municipal buildings. The plant is nearing the end of its operational life and is using outdated technology to treat the sewage. This treatment plant needs to be replaced very soon. With that being said, a sewer system expansion to the common would solve this issue. The sewer discharge site is currently designed, and we are working with Mass DEP to finalize the permit before going out to bid. We've been working with the school committee to minimize impact to student athletes as much as possible. Construction is scheduled to begin in the spring of 2022. Once complete, the field will be reconstructed using sod, and we hope that athletics can continue to use the field in the fall of 2022. So as I stated earlier, LWD purchased 242 King Street recently, which will be used as a location of the proposed water resource recovery center. 242 King Street is centrally located to the sewer system and the recharge site at the high school. This property is in a secluded location, and the entire west side of the property abuts I-495 and has limited close proximity dwellings. This property also abuts Beaver Brook, which would give the water department an opportunity to protect the wetland areas and Beaver Brook areas surrounding. This is environmentally beneficial because we would now have more direct control over the brook. In the slide, you can see a satellite image of the site as well as a GIS map of 242 King Street and the surrounding areas. We began working with CDM Smith earlier this year on a design that would bring sewer to the Littleton Common area. Here is CDM Smith's proposed schedule of deliverables that was presented at our public forum in June. In August, the LELWD companies approached town officials and presented a concept for a mixed-use development at 550 King Street, a parcel that was not previously included in the sewer district. This would drastically change the approach, and because of that, the schedule changed, which I will touch base on at a later slide. Many different sewer scenarios were analyzed and considered by the Board of Commissioners. Essentially, the commissioners wanted to put forth a plan that meets the primary goal of the master plan, which includes sewering the Littleton Common while also allowing for future expansion and protecting groundwater. The parcels shown in yellow are proposed to be included in the initial sewer expansion. This area will be known as the Littleton Common phase of the sewer expansion. In this area, there's 58 commercial properties and 53 residences that might have an opportunity to opt out of the system. Currently, the town is the only user of the existing system and therefore is funding the system 100% through sewer rates. The addition of 550 King Street, the 550 King Street development would add many more sewer users, which would result in lower betterment and user fees per connected property. At the request of the LELWD companies, the Board of Commissioners added 550 King Street to the sewer district. The proposed mixed-use development would be considered the largest user of the proposed sewer system and would therefore shoulder the largest portion of the project costs. The addition of 550 King Street would shift financial responsibility of the system from 100% on the town to roughly 60% on the 550 King Street proposed development, now 20% on municipal buildings, and then 20% on other users in the district. And those numbers might even be a little lower for municipal buildings. We're still working to finalize some of those numbers right now. With the addition of the 550 King Street development to the sewer district, questions have been asked how this would impact potential future expansion of the sewer system. Here's a table of the sewer needs assessment that depicts the different recommended areas in need of sewer. The needs assessment looked at many different factors to choose these areas, including environmental benefits and promotion of economic growth. As you can see here, the Littleton Common area is phase 1A in yellow. With that being said, CDM Smith estimated the total flow that would be required for each of these areas to be 180,000 gallons per day. This isn't existing wastewater flow. This is estimated flow if the areas were built out to what the planning department thinks each of these areas could potentially be. To answer the question from the previous slide, we were in the process of designing a 175,000 gallon per day discharge site, which would have been large enough to handle the different phases identified by CDM Smith. However, with the addition of 550 King Street, we needed more capacity. We amended the discharge design to add 2 areas shown in green between the blue areas, which would now give us a total of 208,000 gallon per day capacity and would meet the current capacity needs. There's also 2 additional leaching fields, which are the 2 large green areas at the bottom that could be built in the future to expand the system. These additional fields could improve system capacity to over 313,000 gallons per day. So yes, the addition of 550 King Street will increase capacity, but we have a plan in place that would be able to meet the needs of the future expansion. For those of you who don't know, town meeting is upcoming this Monday night, the 25th, in the Littleton High School Gymnasium. Article 12 is maybe the most important sewer article to date in determining the future of the sewer system. This article would authorize the Board of Water Commissioners to borrow an amount of monies not to exceed $25 million to be paid through the Sewer Enterprise Fund. With the town's approval, this borrowing authorization, the Board of Commissioners will be able to construct a 208,000 gallon per day sewer system. I know this article previously had a not to exceed number of 28.5 million, which was in the town meeting books that were sent out. However, we've received some real pricing for the project within the last few weeks, and we're able to drop that number down $3.5 million. Extending the Littleton sewer system will provide a major environmental benefit. The sewer needs assessment identified 6 areas as primary water quality areas of concern that would benefit from the addition of sewer. These areas are represented by the green highlights on this map. There are many constraints that limit the effectiveness on-site septic systems, including those listed on this slide. This can be particularly problematic when those septic systems are located in a Zone 2 aquifer protection area. The Zone 2 aquifer protection area of the Beaver Brook wells includes most of the Littleton Common area, so it's important to protect this area and remove wastewater discharge from it. Extending sewer into the common area will remove hundreds of septic systems from the Zone 2 and better protect drinking water quality for the town. This cost estimate is from a few months ago. This number is from very early in design and contains multiple high compounding contingencies. We've used this as a budgetary number until we could start design and start cutting out some of the project contingencies. We knew that this estimate was high, but we really weren't at a point to cut that down at all. So we used this number to apply for a state revolving fund loan, which we are hopeful to get for this project. We estimate this loan to be at a rate of 1.5% and are hopeful that our application will be approved. In a later slide, you will see how we are able to cut this estimate from almost 40 million down to the 25 million that I mentioned earlier. This is a diagram that we've shown at earlier points in the project. This slide depicts different sewer scenarios that have been evaluated to replace the existing system. I want to bring to attention scenarios A1 and A2. I mentioned earlier that the existing sewer treatment facility is nearing its end of life, and the town will need to address this in the very near future. So scenario A1 is the estimated cost to replace the existing system with a similar system at the high school, using all existing infrastructure. This estimated cost is $6.5 million. Scenario A2 is to replace the existing system with a similar system at 242 King Street and not sewer the common. This scenario estimates a cost of just over $13 million because of the additional piping and pump stations needed to move the treatment facility. In both scenarios, taxpayers would be covering 100% of the financial burden because the town is the only user of the existing system. I mentioned these scenarios so that we can compare to what the burden would be on the taxpayers if the sewer is expanded to the Littleton Common with the 550 King Street development as part of the system. This table depicts the latest opinion of probable project costs for the proposed sewer expansion to the Littleton Common. The highlighted portion in green is the most recent estimate that we have received from the engineer to date. This table estimates the project cost just over 25 million. But how does CDM Smith estimate 25 million total project cost? If you look at the first column, CDM Smith estimates the OPPC in today's prices. All system parts are broken out, including collection, conveyance to treatment, membrane bioreactor equipment, and conveyance to the discharge site, which all total at the bottom of the column. So that means if we were to build the plant today, it's estimated that it would cost over $15.5 million. CDM then takes that $15.5 million cost and adds compounding contingencies to the different parts due to its complexity and the construction duration of the project. Included in these contingencies are 25% construction unknowns that might be discovered during construction. They account for inflation because the midpoint of construction for this project is estimated to be at mid-2023. They then add 10% for project contingencies and then 10% on top of that for engineering implementation. So this means while we're asking for a not to exceed number of $25 million right now, we are hopeful that this project total is less at final build out. Article 12 originally asked for a not to exceed authorization of $28.5 million, as I stated earlier. That included a $3.5 million estimate for the membrane bioreactor equipment. We just received bids for the MBR equipment, and the price came in much lower than estimated, and it came at just under 1.4 million. So adding in that known number and removing some of the contingencies from that line item brought the cost down from 28.5 million to 25 million. There are also lots of federal funding opportunities right now, and with this borrowing authorization in place, it would really allow us to leverage those opportunities. This project is right in line with the MassWorks grant and the American Rescue Plan Act. We are hopeful to receive about 8 million in total grants, which is shown at the bottom of the page here. Adding the 550 King Street development into the mix changes everything. The town would no longer be the only user and responsible for 100% of the build-out costs. The proposed redevelopment at 550 King Street would be responsible for an estimated 60% of project costs, while the town would only be responsible for about 20%. In conclusion, the 550 King Street proposed development is a massive win for the sewer expansion project. This project is financially feasible now. Before, we were looking at different ways to subsidize this project, potentially using the tax rate because we did not have this large user. This is not the case now. Now the users will pay for this. Nick stated at last night's commissioners meeting that the sewer project changed from an if you build it, they will come strategy to now it's they're here and now we need to build the infrastructure. 550 King Street does not interfere with future sewer goals. As we stated, the way that this is being designed, whether it's 20 or 30 years from now, the town has options to expand for future needs. This project would help remove nitrates from the Littleton Common, which is a Zone 2 protected area. The water would be recharged back into our own town's water sources. The Board of Commissioners, Select Board, and Finance Committee all unanimously support this article. We feel that there are real grant opportunities associated with this project and the borrowing authorization. This project would shift the capital operating cost from 100% on the town to now 20%. The town has already invested about $4 million in this project, and 550 King Street makes this project feasible. So now's the right time to move forward. So I know that was a lot of information. I tried to keep it brief, but with that being said, we'll now open to questions. So as a reminder, use the Q&A feature to make sure that we get your question. Press the Q&A button on Zoom and raise your hand and type out your question, and we'll try. And it looks like we have a lot of questions coming in already.
Yeah, I can go ahead and read some of those, Dave, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
And then we can all kind of jump in as needed. If I can answer them, we can go. Otherwise, we can jump in as well. Like Dave said, looks like quite a few are coming in. I'll just start with the first one, and we'll just kind of start going through the list. So there's a question, will there be an application process for getting sewer access for areas that are near the sewer district? And if so, when will that be available? Nick, do you want to take that one? Or?
Yeah, sure. The beauty with the legislation, and we saw this play out with 550 King Street, is that expansion of the sewer district is actually up to the Board of Water Commissioners, so they can expand that sewer district as they see fit. So if it makes sense to expand the district, they will, financial sense, environmental sense. It made sense at 550 King Street. Crossing 495 is a complicated, expensive proposition. If there was a bridge to be replaced, and we can get sewer main through that would obviously make sense. If people on the other side of 495 were willing to take on that cost, then maybe that makes sense. But that the beauty is that's done through the water department, through the sewer commissioners, who are the water commissioners. So, I know they're all ears and they're receptive to requests to adapt the district as sees fit.
All right. This next question kind of has two parts, one of which is more related to planning and zoning, which the water and sewer department really has nothing to do with that. So we're not going to be addressing those kinds of questions tonight. Those would be better suited for probably a planning board meeting or perhaps a select board meeting or town meeting. But the second part of the question is relevant to us. This person's asking for clarification from the water department on a relatively recent Lowell Sun article of alleged violations of the Clean Waters Act at the point. And she's wondering what happened there and why would, how we can explain that essentially. Want me to jump in on that one?
Yeah, I think you're probably better answer that one than I am, Corey.
Sure. Yeah. So the sewer system at the point, that's a privately operated system with all private customers, has nothing to do with the town or the water department at all. It is nearby a drinking water supply that we operate for the town, the Beaver Brook wells. So we've been paying close attention to that issue as well. As far as the violations that occurred there, DEP was made aware early in the process and handles the enforcement of bringing them back into compliance there. And DEP's been in close communication with us on that topic all along. There were really permit violations. There was no pollution of the Beaver Brook or the water supply or anything like that. So that's the kind of thing that we keep an eye on here. We're not directly responsible for it, but we are keeping an eye on that sort of thing and working closely with the state to resolve those issues.
Yeah, I would just add, Corey, that this further exemplifies the need for this in the common. The common is a Zone 2 area, similar to the point. It's why it's important to sewer this area and bring that effluent, wastewater to an area outside of Zone 2. So. Thanks for that answer.
All right, on to the next one here. So according to the stated rules, commercial properties in the district will be required to connect and use the sewer, while residential owners can opt out. And then the question is, what about mixed use properties?
Yeah, that's a good question. And it's our understanding that mixed use properties will fall more into the commercial zone because they're not like 550 King Street, I think is the good example of this. None of that's zoned residential, and it's the residential zoning that gets that opt in, opt out. We're working closely with financial analysts that I think even the betterment fees will be very attractive to residential customers. That even the opt in, opt out will have most customers opting into this project.
Okay. Next question is smart sewer technology still under consideration?
Yeah, smart sewer is a funny, wide open term. And, if you ask our Board of Water Commissioners, smart sewer means doing sewer smart, making it expandable and using technology to help, make sure we're not doing things now that inhibit us from future expansion in the future. And the discharge site, I believe, is a great example of that. It's being built now to handle foreseeable needs of the town, but also being designed in a way that in the future we can fit what we believe are the full needs of the town in that discharge site. And the same with the sewer plant in itself. The footprint, the shell of the building will be built in a way that we can expand the filtration equipment to handle that full load of the town with that holistic needs assessment that was done. And the technology that was put in there is, state-of-the-art technology. The membrane bioreactor technology that we bid out, that we got pricing on, is state-of-the-art. It's top-notch technology that we feel will lend a hand in the future to however we adapt this plant.
Okay. The next question: is there a written agreement with the 550 King Street developers to pay their share?
Yeah, again, there's no written agreement. 550 King Street, early on, the Littleton companies did extend to us a letter expressing their willingness to be a partner. And then our Board of Commissioners, very smartly so, again, with that legislative right to expand the district onto that parcel by vote, took that vote unanimously to support and to move that district onto 550 King Street. 550 King Street no longer has a choice. They're in the district. When we build the system out, they're going to pay their fair share based on the fact that they're in the district. And the legislation doesn't give them the right now to opt out.
Right, we're getting through the list here. Well, you just answered this one. The next question is: will the 550 King have the option to opt out? That answer was no. That's all we have in the chat so far. Dave, did we get any more through the email address?
Nope, we don't have any more right now, but Alicia, did you want to jump in and say anything?
No, I think you guys covered it very well and did an awesome presentation. Thank you.
Yeah, there is one question, Corey. I don't know if you missed it. It just came in, the final capacity. So the question is, will the final configuration on 550 King Street impact the capacity requirements? And from that slide that Dave showed early on, it won't. When we did the holistic need of the community, it was about 180,000 gallons per day. We're thinking, and it's early on in the process, and obviously depends on what the planning board allows, that the most that 550 King Street would be 120,000 gallons per day. So right around 300,000 gallons per day. And the total discharge site, and that's really the biggest limiting factor of any sewer system, is the discharge site. That's a little bit over 300,000 gallons per day if all the green areas in that slide that Dave showed were developed, would be able to support. So we strongly feel that this system, designed and built to the fullest capacity, could support all four phases and 550 King Street well into the future. And again, like we touched upon last night, the four phases in of itself are how we feel right now the town should be sewered. There's nothing set in stone. If 20 years from now the town picks a different direction to sewer, finds different needs, obviously that could be adjusted.
That's the list of questions we have so far. Maybe give people another minute or two if they want to ask anything else.
So obviously we will be presenting on this article at town meeting. So if you didn't get a chance to ask a question tonight, feel free to ask during town meeting.
Yep. Thanks, Dave. And thanks everybody for tuning in today and asking questions. And this is obviously a project we've been dealing with now for a few years, and the town's been dealing with it for probably close to 2 decades. It's an important project for both the town from an environmental standpoint and economic development. We're excited about it. For the first time that we've been able to put our hands around this project, it's financially feasible. We have a great partner in the Littleton companies. and it solves our sewering issues that we're dealing with now with the town. We're committed to keeping you as informed as the project progresses, and we work to ensure we provide you a sewer solution that fits the town's needs. Anytime between now and town meeting, please feel free to reach out to us. You can always get more information on our website, LELWD.com, and also follow us on Facebook. Thanks, everybody.